Federal troops brought death and terror to the streets of Minneapolis. Well, they picked the wrong city. The power and the solidarity of the people of Minneapolis and of Minnesota was an inspiration to the entire country. Your strength and your commitment told us that this is still America. And this reactionary nightmare and these invasions of American cities will not stand.
Let's just say it plainly. Presidents do not usually go to war with rock stars unless the rock star hit a nerve. What you just saw is why Donald Trump went off on Bruce Springsteen. Not because Springsteen sang a song, because he framed this moment as a test of the country itself, and Trump, true to form, answered not with calm, not with substance, but with insults. Now here's why this matters. This is not just a celebrity spat. This is about a president using the language of personal grievance while critics are talking about power, fear, immigration raids, and the basic question of what kind of country we are becoming. And we also need to be responsible here. The source video is emotionally charged. Some of its accusations go further than what independent reporting has legally established. So in this breakdown, we're going to do it the right way. What the clip shows, what verified reporting confirms, and what all of that tells us about Trump's political instincts when he gets challenged in public. Because the real story is not that Trump got mad. The real story is what he got mad at.
Of course there is. And importantly, this is about something more powerful, more complex, and I think more significant than resistance. It's about love. You know, it's about people showing up for their neighbors. It's about understanding that there is this common humanity that binds us. And it's also about, you know, standing up for our great nation. And that's exactly what you're doing with this movement to save America. It's recognizing that, you know, at the baseline, we're all human beings.
That is the contrast right there. On one side, you have a mayor talking about neighbors, community, and basic human dignity. On the other, you have a president throwing around insults at a musician who criticized him. And that contrast tells you a lot about the politics of this moment. Now let's ground this carefully. The source video presents Minneapolis as a city under extreme federal pressure, and independent reporting does support the broad reality that the Twin Cities saw a major immigration enforcement surge. AP reported that more than 2,000 federal officers were brought into Minneapolis and St. Paul during the crackdown. Reuters later reported that the operation ultimately sent nearly 3,000 additional federal officers and agents into the area, with thousands still present into February. And here's the part viewers deserve to hear clearly. The source video uses words like murdered and executed. Those are accusations and moral judgments from the speakers in the video. Verified reporting confirms that Renee Good was shot and killed by an ICE agent on January 7th, and that Alex Preddy, an ICU nurse, was shot and killed by federal officers on January 24th. Reuters also reported that Minnesota later sued the federal government for access to evidence in those shootings. That does not prove every charge made in the source video, but it absolutely tells you this was not some invented controversy. The bigger issue is consequence. When federal power is used in a way that leaves citizens dead, cities destabilized, and courts stepping in, this stops being a culture war sideshow. It becomes a democracy story, and that is exactly why Trump lashing out at Springsteen matters, because the art is not the story by itself. The backlash is revealing what the politics are trying to hide: required style, one strong opening line, one factual grounding section, one interpretation section, one payoff line that leads to the next block. Here's what makes Trump's response so revealing. Bruce Springsteen criticized his administration in public, and Trump answered the way insecure strongmen usually do, not by rebutting the substance, but by trying to humiliate the critic. The New York Times reported Trump told Springsteen he ought to keep his mouth shut, and AP documented the president posting a mocking golf video aimed at him. That is not confidence, that is fixation. And when a president is more eager to punish dissent than explain himself, people notice.
There was a period there where there were, I believe it was 1,800 or 2,000 military that were stationed in Alaska that were on the verge of getting deployed to Minneapolis. I'm not even talking about ICE agents. I mean, full on military. We were deeply concerned about the invocation of the Insurrection Act. which is something that you don't mess around with, and was deeply concerning for the safety of our residents. And so, there's things that happen in these.
If that clip doesn't make you sit up straight, it should. Because once you are talking about soldiers, the Insurrection Act, and federal pressure on a city, you are not in normal politics anymore. You are in the territory where democratic guardrails start looking very fragile. Now again, let's separate the verified from the unverified. AP reported that about 1,500 active duty soldiers based in Alaska were told to be ready in case of a possible deployment to Minnesota, and that one defense official said they were standing by should Trump invoke the Insurrection Act. That means the fear you hear in this clip was not pulled out of thin air. It was tied to a real public report. At the same time, we should not overstate what has been proved. Specific claims in the source video about motive, intent, or broader coercive demands should not be repeated as hard fact unless independently documented. What we can say is this: Reuters reported Trump warned Frey he was playing with fire, and multiple outlets documented an unusually aggressive federal posture toward Minneapolis during the crackdown. Here's my opinion, and I want to be clear that it is opinion. When a president normalizes this kind of escalation, even as a threat, he changes what people think government is allowed to do to them. That is the real damage. Not just what happens in one city, but what gets psychologically introduced into American life as acceptable. And that is why Trump attacking Springsteen is not random at all. Artists, mayors, veterans, and ordinary citizens are all touching the same nerve: the fear that raw power is replacing accountability. This is the part that turns outrage into accountability. Reuters reported Minnesota sued for access to evidence in the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. PBS, citing AP reporting, said Congress was notified that 2 federal officers fired shots in the encounter that killed Preddy. So no, this is not just internet rhetoric and not just protest branding. There are real investigations, real evidentiary disputes, and real public questions still hanging over what happened. And whenever officials are fighting over access to evidence, that is your sign the public should lean in, not tune out.
They did not want to ask for this sacrifice, but what's important and what we have to do is we have to make their lives mean something in the after effects. What they took from us were two Americans that had no right to die that day, and we need to fight back. And the fact that people out here in the rain, in the cold, are here fighting for America, fighting for the principles that Ken and I fought for decades. That's what this is all about, and it's amazing. It is an amazing feat.
So what did we actually learn here? We learned that Trump's outburst at Bruce Springsteen was not the main event. It was a symptom of how this political style works. When public pressure rises, when artists speak out, when local leaders resist, when citizens start connecting the dots, Trump goes personal. He tries to make the critic the story, but the story is bigger than that. The source video shows a city trying to turn grief into solidarity. Verified reporting shows that federal officers killed Renee Good and Alex Preddy, that Minnesota later sued for access to evidence, and that major news organizations documented a sweeping crackdown that rattled Minneapolis and drew national attention. Those are serious facts. They demand seriousness from all of us. And here is the Democratic takeaway. If you care about accountability, then emotion alone is not enough. You need memory. You need evidence. You need people in office who do not treat dissent like a personal insult. You need courts that still function. You need media that does not flinch. And yes, you need voters who understand that cruelty marketed as strength is still cruelty. That is why videos like this matter when they are done responsibly, not to inflame people with fantasy, to keep the record straight while telling the moral truth. Trump wanted the attention. On Bruce Springsteen, fine. But what this clip package really exposes is something far more dangerous. A politics that keeps reaching for intimidation when accountability gets too close. If you want more reporting-based commentary that doesn't play dumb and doesn't play nice with propaganda, subscribe, because the truth only matters if enough of us refuse to look away. If you want fact-based commentary with some backbone, subscribe now. We're going to keep tracking this story and the people trying to spin it.